like the topic of reading. After I got my doctorate in optometry, I went back and got a master's degree in reading. Isn't that backwards? I should have got a master's first, then doctorate, right? No. So I went back to really try to look at reading because we had some children where you go ahead and take care of visual skills, they're immediately a great reader. We had other patients, though, who you do vision skills on, and they get better at all the skills, but they're reading 3 months, 6 months later, then they start getting better. So I was really curious about what is it about reading that makes it so hard, and what we can do to try to make it easier. The model also works really well for our head injury patients. So, why do you think optometrists should be involved in helping people learn how to read again? Raise your hand, yes or no? Yes?
Yes.
No. Okay, so some people think, though, that we shouldn't because we're optometrists, we're not educators. But the basic principles of development not only go for reading, but also for head injury and stroke. So this is a cartoonist in my area. It says, I don't know if this is such a wise thing to do, George. And this is the beaten path and off the beaten path. So in a way, kind of, we're getting off the beaten path of optometry, aren't we?
Yes.
Instead of talking about visual skills like visual perceptual skills, we're going to go right into reading. Okay, so I hope this is a fun thing for you as well as it is for me. So acquired brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries, stroke, anoxia, other neurological disorders like MS, Guillain-Barré, Parkinson's. We use some of these principles with many of these patients. Okay? Most studies on alexia and hemanosmia show that the reading issues are mainly visual field issues, but there's also visual performance issues. Main areas are what? Visual field loss, eye movement disorders, low vision, and visual perceptual impairment. So there is a high preponderance of reading issues in this population. The incidence of reading disabilities in other brain injuries, in traumatic versus mild. Remember, mild traumatic brain injury is underreported in the literature, so maybe there's even more patients out there that need our help than even the statistics show. A nice study by Kafrida on reading and brain injury showed eye movement issues, vergence issues, and accommodation issues. So we know that yes, visual skills are a component, okay? But secondarily, how we go about it can also be important for these patients in recovery of reading. Here's a couple more articles, again by Kafrida. You notice I use Kafrida a lot because this guy has published over 500, 600 articles on everything you can think of in head injury. The guys, if it wasn't for him, I don't think we'd be half along the way we are. Okay? So let's define reading. What is it? Learning to read versus reading to learn. That's differences in our kids first learning how to read versus reading to learn. And what is reading for? And how is it really affected in brain injury? Is it just the loss of ability to read? Or is it lost in the efficiency of reading? I mean, have they lost the process of how to read? Or is it they're just not as efficient? They're slower at processing? The answer is it depends, right? Some are slower. Some have lost the ability to read. All right, now, basic models of reading. Top-down approach. That means you come to the reading task with meaning and language. Like in our schools, if you look at the children who have the worst problems in reading, they're the ones that come from homes where language is not very much used. And it makes sense if you have a good spoken language to begin with, you're going to know what language is about, and then when you learn to read, you can just fill in the gaps. If you don't have a knowledge of reading to begin with, or rather language, spoken language, and I go into reading, it's going to be pretty tough because I have to learn spoken language and how to read at the same time. There's also another model that talks about bottom-up approach. That means I have to know all the sounds of all the letters before I can learn to put them together into words. Do you know of anybody who sounds out every letter, remembers them all in perfect sequence, and then says them one word at a time? Nobody. I don't know if anybody can do that. can you also likewise remember, would you ever think of a child or an infant trying to learn to talk? Johnny, you can't learn to say words until you learn all the sounds first. That would be ridiculous. Okay, so what is reading? Reading is a combination of both top-down and bottom-up. There is no specific one way to teach reading, and that's it. Reading emerges out of our patients, out of a combination of both meaning-driven purposes, but also seeing patterns of words. Here's a thought. Remember how many times you thought about reading and you think, oh, I have to see it clear and sharp and see all the letters at once. Versus readers that are efficient, what do? They look at a word and use the minimal amount of cues to notice what the word is. They don't look at every letter and figure it out. They look at the whole and take whatever information they need and come up with the word pretty much right the first time. Now, reading is acquired by stages. This is by Tinker. This is one extreme view. The child first acquires decoding skills in word recognition. What? How could a child ever learn decoding skills before they know what words are? The decoding vocabulary is increased, the knowledge of concept and comprehensions and ideas emerges, and older children increase capacity to grasp meaning and appreciate the style of written passages. That is a bottom-up approach, purely bottom-up approach, which I would disagree with. I would say you have to have a blended approach. This is Kenneth Goodman. When I did my program for learning about reading, psycholinguistics was involved more so, and this is a psycholinguistic definition. So he says reading is a psycholinguistic guessing game. It involves an interaction between thought and language. Efficient reading does not result from precise perception and identification of all elements, but from the skill in selecting the fewest, most productive cues necessary to produce guesses which are right the first time. Doesn't that sound more on track? The ability to anticipate that which has not been seen, of course, is vital in reading, just as the ability to anticipate what has not been heard is vital in listening. So by reading and anticipating what's coming up, I can make easier guesses at what's coming up in the words. If I say, John went to the store in the airplane or automobile, what would it most likely be? Automobile. Who goes to the store in an airplane? I don't. Maybe somebody does, but not likely, right? So again, you anticipate and predict what's coming up, and therefore I can see the word automobile easier because I know it's not airplane. All right, there's a book called Human Brain, Human Learning by Leslie Hart. We did milk yesterday, didn't we? Yeah? This is where I would toss in milk. Did I say milk again 10 times? No, we won't do that. But again, the key is that we give you auditory information, okay? It establishes patterns in regards to neural networks. And again, patterning provides an opportunity for anticipation. Anticipation allows a selective recognition as one can approximate print and read effectively. So I'm going to suggest to you that you do not read every word verbatim, but that you anticipate and predict reading and you approximate the print, not exact decoding. Now, the fallacy of phonics. There's 2,000 ways to write 44 English sounds. Berdiansky in a study found that there's 6,092 most commonly used words of 6 and 9-year-olds have 69 grapheme units that are related to 38 sounds, a total of 211 ways. That means that in order to be a good 6 and 9-year-old reader, you have to have 160 rules memorized and 45 exceptions memorized. Whoa. Did any of you know all the rules? I don't even know a teacher who knows all the rules, but they're teaching it, okay? The exceptions make up 600 of the most commonly used words. Now, what I'll tell you is I before E except after C. But wait a second. Except when you run a feisty heist on a weird foreign neighbor wearing a beige shirt. We've just broken the rule. multiple times over and over again. Again, this is the problem in English language. Now, this is actually a technique in our homeschool programs for one of them. Luckily, it's not used by very many people. Letter E has how many sounds? 9. Letter O has how many sounds? 9. Whoa. How are you going to remember all the sounds? There is some clear literature showing that it's more important to know letter names than letter sounds. Why? Letter names are always the same. Letter sounds are not. If I'm looking and trying to remember a letter and there's 9 different sounds to it, that's going to be pretty tough to remember. So let's take another look at this. If you have the word your, Y has 4 different sounds, O has 9, U has 7, and R has 1. If you multiply together, the word your, Y-O-U-R, could be pronounced a total of 252 different ways based on the possible sounds. That's pretty scary, isn't it? Okay, now let's sound these out. If you know this one, please do not say it, okay? Look at the first word, raise it when you think you have it. How to pronounce it. Most people would say goti, right? That'd be the first guess. The first one, the word is fish. Why? You take the GH in tough, the O in women, the TI in nation, and what you get is fish. That's pretty good, isn't it? Fish. Okay? Now let's do another one. Second one. When you're ready, go ahead and sound it out. Keep going. Are you all done? Sheba? Okay, raise your hand if you actually said something. Raise your hand. Raise it. Raise it. It's okay. Now, if you did not say anything to it, raise your hand. How many of you didn't say anything? Raise your hand. You are all correct who didn't say anything. Okay? Now, why would that be? You take the S in Illinois, the H in tough, the E in shape, the B in depth, the U in dough, the G in cough, and what you get is silence. Okay? So those of you who did not respond to that question were all correct. Okay? All right. How do we recognize words? From shape and patterns. Lots of different ways we look at them.